In this episode, I'm going to be teaching about a beautiful and strikingly gorgeous mineral called banded tiger chert, and I'm going to be demonstrating how it was flaked and knapped in ancient times and shaped into both weapons and tools by the ancient peoples of the Americas. This mineral comes from only one quarry site in the United States, yet through trade routes as far back as 13,000 years ago, it was spread person to person all the way from Canada to Mexico and clear across the continental United States. Join me as I teach about this mineral and demonstrate how it was used.
Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about an amazing mineral that was traded all over the New World, and it comes from only one location. It's a very striking mineral, and it's been utilized by people all the way back since the Clovis culture during the Ice Age, about 13,000 years ago. And that mineral is called banded tiger chert. It's very pretty. It has these really cool concentric stripes. It's a very remarkable looking stone. Now, we find this all the way to Canada, all the way as far east as Illinois, and as far south as Mexico. We've actually found it in offering pits down in Mexico, where the Aztec would do these big ritualistic offerings, and they'd bury all these things and dead eagles and dead deer and different things, and they would make big, beautiful pieces of blades, like big points, and they'd make them out of these and they'd bury these in these ritual sites. So this is a mineral that's been spread all around. It's very beautiful, and of course that striking black and white striping is what you assume people were after. But the interesting thing about this is it really only comes from one site. It's kind of one hill that's been eroded out into two hills with a river that's gone through it. So I had an archaeologist a few years ago take me to this site. And we looked around, and I was going to gather some of the raw stone. I'm a flint knapper. I make stone tools and weapons, and I wanted to use some of this actual stuff. Well, it turns out the really interesting thing about this, the rock itself, left to its own devices, is just kind of a dark, kind of a black, sort of a tar color, and it doesn't have these stripes. Well, what turns out is the natural patina that happens from being super hot and then being in the snow and hot in the snow, it makes those stripes come out. So when you are making a fresh piece, you usually, if you're breaking down in, you're not seeing those stripes down inside. Now, modern flint knappers, like myself, who have access to this material, have found that we can speed up the patination process by putting it in muriatic acid. You can get acid from, like a hardware store, and you just dip it in overnight, and then all those black and white stripes pop right out immediately. So we're going to demonstrate today trying to work with some of this material. Now, I need to go back to the quarry. I haven't been in a number of years, and I'm getting down to smaller and smaller pieces, but we're going to show you what it's like to actually work with this material and see what it looks like in the end. Now, interesting thing is, so here's a finished piece I've made. So here is a blade, like it could be a spearhead or a knife blade. And again, those stripes are just so stunning and beautiful. It's not the best material to work with, but what we believe is that the earliest of people to use this material, it's just the material they had that available. These were woolly mammoth hunters, people in the Wyoming region who were hunting the Great Plains of Wyoming. So they're hunting things like woolly mammoths and buffalo and extinct giant camels, things like that. And this was just the available source. And they didn't really care, we assume, they didn't really care the fact that it was beautiful. Well, it turns out later on, once you go thousands of years forward in time, then people are trading this as a trade item. And one of the things we find is that an item is traded. See, when I haul my gear, it's really heavy. All these rocks, and I haul them in this big old container. It's ridiculously heavy. These are people with no draft animals. They're traveling on foot. And so to trade something like this, you want to make a biface. Now, this is obsidian, but this would be considered a biface. Now, this is still a functional knife. You can use this as a hand knife, wrap leather around one side and cut with it, butcher with it, but this is a biface. So what you do is you take a large stone and you break it down and you chip it and flake it until you get this. and then you take these with you. You wrap these up in leather and you take these with you. This is a useful tool as is, or I can trade it to somebody else and they can chip it down more. They could break it and make smaller little spear points, make arrowheads, something like that, or they could just narrow it down and make it into one big spear point. But bifaces like this is one of the things we look for in the archaeological record, because again, this is far lighter. You know, this is probably, originally I made this out of like a 6-pound chunk of obsidian. Nowadays, for me to go to a quarry with a truck and load them all in buckets, it's no problem. But in the old days on foot, hauling, you know, 7 of these would be way better than hauling 7 individual rocks that are each 7 to 10 pounds each. You can't do that. So bifaces are what we're going to try to make. We're going to try to make something similar to this, and we're going to be making it out of banded tiger chert. And we're going to see how it goes. But I want to point out one more interesting thing about this stuff. His minerals recycle. Things get in the earth and they change and they shift. This banded tiger chert originally was ocean floor. And over time, the sediments and the heat and the pressure have reformed it into chert. The silica in it have made it into this chert. And there were fossils in it. So I have here, this is the fossilized vertebrae of a shark. And for comparison, I have a modern one, different species obviously, but we're going to go ahead and take a look at those up close, and just seeing the fact that you had a vertebrae of a shark, which isn't bone, it's cartilage, and it managed to get fossilized, and millions of years later, I'm pulling it out of a quarry and finding it on the ground like that. It's pretty amazing. And so things can go full circle. You can have things where it's like, okay, this used to be a fossil, and then you're flaking it and making it into a spearhead, you know, millions of years later, and you're using it to hunt a woolly mammoth. That's pretty incredible. That's quite the journey for the minerals in those sediments. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna try to flake some of this and see where we can go with it.
So first, when we're looking here, you've got to read the rock itself, and you can see there's kind of like sharp edges, ridges, and there's also a lot of chunkiness to this rock. So at this stage, we're not trying to shape it into a tool. We're going to grind and make a sturdy platform before we make our first hit. But the goal at this stage is just to thin the rock itself. And this is a step-by-step process. You hit down, you can see here's a beautiful flake. It's got a nice gentle curve to it, which is something we read in the archaeological record. When we see flakes like this, we call lithics. So again, I'm going to keep reading the rock, and you'll grind one direction and then flip the rock over and hit it on the other side. Step by step, we're just taking off these pieces, just trying to make it thinner and thinner and thinner. Now this is naturally going to start to shape the piece either in sort of a teardrop shape or sort of a round shape. That's how normal bifaces are. So this is not intentional, but we're going to target this big hump right here because we've got to make this thinner. So going to grind, and then we're going to go ahead and turn it over, and we're going to hit, and we're going to properly take that out. You can see right where that flake came off. Right here, take a look at this. Bam, it's exactly what we want. We just want to thin it out. Now eventually we get this thinner and thinner until we finally get a biface, which is what we want. This is basically what we're looking for, a nice thin teardrop piece. This is what we're working with, and then we can go from there.
Okay, so we have now completed and made it a biface. Now this is pretty similar to the size of the one that I showed you that I had made earlier. Now this has those beautiful spirals. This one will too. I'm gonna dunk it in some muriatic acid and it'll get those beautiful colors that we're looking for. But again, these are, again, we started off with a piece similar to this in size, and look what we've gone down to. So again, the idea is it's a lot easier, rather than hauling a bunch of these around, you make a bunch of these, and you then can just stack them up, wrap them in leather, take them with you. You can use this right now. I can use this as a knife. This is a butchering tool, but I can narrow it down, make it into a spear point, or I can haft it and put it on a handle and make it a knife with a handle. So this is a versatile tool, it's a trade item, and it's a tool already, but it can be used to be made into other tools. So again, this banded tiger chert, it's really, really cool stuff. And again, it has a rich history, only comes from one place in the world, and that's in Wyoming near Fort Bridger, from one hill that's been divided in half. And again, we see it all the way, transferred all the way up to Canada, and all the way to Illinois, and all the way down to Mexico City itself. So it's pretty neat stuff. So I hope you enjoyed seeing this little demonstration of how flint knapping works. I've had to show clips to show kind of the process, but it took me about 20 minutes total to go from a rock to this. And I've got a lot of experience. It's not a perfect piece because I'm just trying to make a biface. But again, about 20 minutes of work, you can go from a rock to a usable tool that's a trade item. So I hope you enjoyed watching that. And always remember that life is a gift. So never stop learning and never stop exploring. We'll see you next time.